It is just after midnight on March 8, 2014. The humid night air clings to the runway at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Inside the cockpit of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, prepares his Boeing 777 for another routine overnight flight. Beside him sits First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, young, confident, and still early in his career. Their destination Beijing, China. Estimated flight time, 6 hours. The aircraft, registration 9MMRO, gleams under the lights as 227 passengers and 12 crew members board. Businessmen, families, students, tourists are all unaware that within hours, their flight will vanish into one of aviation's deepest mysteries. At 12:41 a.m., flight MH370 rolls down runway 32R. The engines roar, the aircraft lifts into the night sky, and Kuala Lumpur Tower clears it to climb to 18,000 feet. Inside the cockpit, the routine is calm, professional. Farik handles the radio communications. Zahari monitors the climb. Malaysia 370, contact Lumpur radar, good night. The last known words from the cockpit are spoken in a calm, ordinary voice, good night, Malaysian 370. Seconds later, the plane passes from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace. The silence. No further transmissions. No distress call. No radar contact. For the next several minutes, air traffic controllers in Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh City attempt to reach the aircraft. There is confusion. Maybe a frequency mix-up. Maybe the pilots switched too early. Controllers try again. Malaysia 370. Please confirm level 350. No reply. At 1:21 a.m., the radar blip of MH370 disappears from civilian screens. To air traffic control, it's as if the aircraft simply ceased to exist. But on military radar, another story is unfolding, a one not known to the world until much later. The aircraft did not crash. It turned a wide, sweeping left turn, back across the Malay Peninsula. The transponder of the system that identifies the aircraft was switched off. The airplane was now flying dark, invisible to civilian radar. It passed north of Penang, Zahari's hometown, and then turned northwest, following an air route toward the Andaman Sea. Inside the cockpit, what happened in those minutes has been the subject of endless speculation. There was no mayday call. No emergency squawk. The cabin crew made no attempt to contact the ground. Was there a hijacking, a deliberate act, a sudden decompression? If it was an emergency, why turn the transponder off? Why fly back across Malaysia without any communication? As MH370 crossed back over the peninsula, the passengers behind the locked cockpit door likely slept. The cabin dark, the gentle hum of the engines masking any sense of danger. The flight path suggests the plane flew under manual control for a time steady, deliberate. At 2:22 a.m., military radar tracked the aircraft for the last time near the Andaman Sea, about 370 kilometers northwest of Penang. Then it disappeared from all radar, but the plane was still flying. In the absence of radar, another system quietly kept recording Inmarsat, a British satellite network used for data communication. Every hour, the aircraft's satellite terminal sent automatic handshakes to the network, confirming it was still connected. No flight crew input was required. When investigators analyzed these handshakes later, they discovered the plane continued to fly for almost 7 more hours after losing radar contact. From 2:22 a.m. until 8:19 a.m., MH370 traversed one of the most remote regions of the planet to the southern Indian Ocean. No one saw it. No one heard it. It flew on, following a strange, curved path southward. In the cockpit, the crew would have been alone with the faint glow of instruments. Fuel ticking down, the night sky above, and nothing but endless ocean below. Whether anyone was still conscious during those hours remains unknown. When investigators reconstructed the satellite data, they found 7 handshakes. The first at 2:25 a.m., Soon after, radar contact was lost. The last at 8:19 a.m. A partial one, known as the seventh arc. Moments later, the aircraft stopped communicating altogether. The satellite signals didn't reveal exact locations, only arcs or curved lines over the Indian Ocean where the aircraft might have been when each signal was sent. Using these, investigators plotted a possible flight path. The conclusion: MH370 had flown south, deep into the Indian Ocean, until it ran out of fuel. But this left the world with the most haunting question: why? In the days after the disappearance, Malaysia Airlines and authorities scrambled to locate the aircraft. The initial search focused in the South China Sea where MH370 was supposed to be. When no debris was found, attention shifted westward, toward the Indian Ocean. Only later, when Inmarsat released its data, did search teams realize the aircraft had never gone north. It had gone south. The search area moved thousands of kilometers, to one of the least explored stretches of ocean on Earth. As weeks turned to months, the mystery deepened. No wreckage, no emergency beacons. Families of passengers waited in agony. Theories multiplied. Some suggested a catastrophic decompression had incapacitated the crew, leaving the aircraft to fly on autopilot until fuel exhaustion. Others proposed a hijacking. Some even pointed to deliberate pilot action. Inside the cockpit, what could have happened? A sudden loss of cabin pressure could render everyone unconscious in minutes. If the crew failed to don oxygen masks in time, hypoxia, lack of oxygen, would quickly set in. The aircraft, still trimmed and stable, could continue flying automatically. But this scenario doesn't explain the deliberate course changes or the shutdown of communication systems. The transponder was turned off by hand. The Akasa, an automated system that sends engine and maintenance data, was disabled just after the last voice transmission. Both require knowledge of the cockpit systems. Both occurred within minutes of each other. Investigators considered the possibility of a cockpit intrusion or hijacking, but there was no evidence of distress, no signal from the cabin, and the door was reinforced and locked from the inside. Attention turned to the pilots. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was 53 years old, experienced, respected, and known for his calm demeanor. Investigators found nothing unusual in his recent behavior or no signs of distress or radicalization. But when his home flight simulator was examined, traces of a flight path similar to the one MH370 were discovered, ending in the southern Indian Ocean. Was it practice or coincidence? No conclusion was reached. Malaysian authorities said the evidence was inconclusive, but others, especially independent analysts, believed it could indicate premeditation. Still, without the cockpit voice recorder or flight data recorder, no one could know for sure. Months after the disappearance, the first physical clue emerged. In July 2015, a flapper owner, a wing part from a Boeing 777A, washed ashore on RA Copyright Union Island, near Madagascar. Testing confirmed it belonged to MH370. Later, more debris appeared along the coasts of Africa and Indian Ocean islands. Each fragment told a silent story. The aircraft had indeed ended its flight in the southern Indian Ocean. But the main wreckage, and the black boxes, remain undiscovered. The search for MH370 became one of the largest and most complex in aviation history. Dozens of ships, aircraft, and deep-sea vehicles combed nearly 120,000 square kilometers of ocean floor. Despite years of effort, nothing definitive was found. The seabed there is rugged, filled with trenches and mountains, some deeper than the Grand Canyon. Investigators reconstructed the final minutes through simulation. As fuel ran out, one engine likely flamed out before the other, causing the aircraft to slowly bank and descend. When the second engine lost power, the autopilot disengaged. In those final moments, the aircraft would have glided silently toward the sea, descending at high speed. Whether anyone was conscious at that point is unknown. The satellite data's final burst at 8:19 a.m. could correspond to the engines shutting down or to the impact itself. No further communication followed. By the time the sun rose over the Indian Ocean, MH370 was gone. Inside the cockpit, the story ended quietly. No alarms, no calls, just the sound of wind over the fuselage as the aircraft fell from the sky into darkness. In the years since, families have struggled with uncertainty. Without wreckage, without answers, the pain never faded. Vigils were held, theories debated, but the truth stayed beyond reach. Experts revisited every possibility. Could a fire in the avionics bay have forced the crew to disable systems? Could smoke have incapacitated them? Yet none of these explain their long, sustained flight south, or the precise navigation early in the sequence. Simulations showed that someone at the controls had steered the plane deliberately between airways, avoiding radar coverage zones. The flight path was too calculated to be random. Whoever guided the plane knew exactly what they were doing. If it was Zahari, was it a controlled, intentional act to a final flight into oblivion? Or was it a desperate attempt to divert a stricken aircraft toward open ocean to save those on board from a crash over land? No one knows. What we do know is this: for nearly 7 hours, MH370 continued to respond automatically to satellite pings. Even without a transponder, even without radio, the aircraft's systems kept whispering their existence into space. Those signals became the only voice left from a flight that never arrived. The investigation officially concluded in 2018. Its final report stated that the aircraft's disappearance could not be determined with certainty. The team is unable to determine the real cause, it read. The aircraft's final position cannot be established with accuracy. For aviation, the loss of MH370 remains both a technical and emotional wound. A modern airliner, with redundant systems, satellite links, and constant monitoring, have vanished completely in an age where nothing seems truly lost. Inside the cockpit that night, two pilots performed what appeared to be a normal departure. Nothing in their voices betrayed fear or conflict. The weather was calm, the systems nominal. Yet minutes later, something changed that altered everything. The disappearance of MH370 reshaped global aviation safety. It led to new rules for real-time aircraft tracking, and the development of flight recorders that can stream data to satellites. But for the 239 people on board, those changes came too late. At the end of it all, only fragments remain: are torn pieces of wing, a cabin panel, a part of the tail, each one marked by ocean wear, barnacles, and salt. Each one silent proof that somewhere, far below the waves, lies the final resting place of MH370. What really happened inside that cockpit remains locked in silence. Perhaps one day, when technology or chance uncovers the wreckage, the recorders will speak again. They will reveal whether the final hours were chaos or calm, whether there was struggle or surrender. Until then, the mystery endures, floating between fact and speculation. For now, the last known truth ends with that final transmission spoken in a calm, steady voice. Good night, Malaysian 370. And the world never heard from them again.